Well, two things. Number one, I wouldn't say music historian is a job. It's just kind of something that you either you are or you aren't. You kind of just and that just comes from interest. So if you I don't know, it's very little info that I have that I know that anybody else couldn't know. It's a matter if they want to know. I was just a person who always I wanted to know.
To another edition of the Black Music Month series on the Groove Line. This is day number 5 now, and I have the honor and privilege of being joined by arguably, no, not arguably, he is the most famous follower of our YouTube channel. He is he's a veteran radio personality. He's been on the air in Chicago, Dallas, Indianapolis. He has been a panelist on Unsung, and he's relaunching one of the best music books I've had a chance to read in recent memory, the coolest music book ever, aka the MC 500. It is my honor and distinct privilege to welcome MC Marcus Chapman aboard the Groove Line. Marcus, how you doing today, man?
Good, good. But real quick, you said it's one of the best or is it two of the best?
Ah, yes, there's two parts to it, so it's two of them. So yes,
Yeah.
two of the best. He will be he will be re-releasing June 20th, correct?
No. The relaunch, the books are already available.
Okay.
The 10th anniversary updates. I have an event in Chicago for it on June the 20th.
Okay.
Yeah, because I never when the books originally came out in 2015 and 16, I was in Dallas. So I basically did a whole tour of the Dallas Fort Worth area because there's a franchise down there called Half Price Books. So it's a bunch of the different bookstores I went to. I did the launch at a record store, Josie Records. I had some at a Barnes and Noble. I did a whole tour, and then when Volume 2 came out the next year, I did one event in Dallas. Then I did one in DC, and I was a guest on News One Now, Roland Martin's show that he had on TV One at the time. But I never did any events in Chicago because I moved back here the next year in 2017. By the time I did that, I had already kind of moved on. The books had done what I was hoping they would do, and I was just on to other things. So I was back in December. I was a moderator for a book signing and discussion event for Seth Neblett. He's the son of Malia Franklin, who was the lady who introduced George Clinton to Bootsy Collins
Yeah.
back in the early 70s. And she was an original member of Parliament, same with Parliament Funkadelic. She passed, I believe, in 2010. And he had been working on the book for basically about 20 years. And it finally came out last year. So he was doing a tour. I helped him get it, the DuSable Museum here to do an event. And through that connection with DuSable, because I had never done anything with them, it was a lady there who actually had the idea for me to do the 10th anniversary relaunch. And at first I was like, I don't know about that. But then I thought about it, I was like, you know what? It's a lot that's changed in 10 years just in terms of books. So like back then, you couldn't put pictures that you took with your phone. Nowadays, that's basically how we do it. You don't often have an official photographer. You see a celebrity, you got your phone, take a picture with them. You couldn't put those types of pictures in books because they wouldn't look right when they got printed out. Well, that's changed. You can do that now. And there are a lot of people who I met in those 10 years who have songs in these books. So I was able to put that. And then my big thing is getting albums autographed, getting records signed by people in the 70s and 80s and stuff. And so I've gotten a nice amount of those autographs. I had a decent amount before, but for example, Bootsy Collins, Bootsy's Rubber Band. Okay, so when the first books came out, I had met 3 of the original members of Bootsy's Rubber Band and George Clinton. So I had, a couple of their albums signed by them. Well, since then, I met like 5 more members of the band, including Bootsy. So instead of having the albums with a few signatures, now it's pretty much everybody except for like 3 people from those bands and pictures with Bootsy. So it's a lot of stuff like that I was able to update. And Also, too, back then, the company that I went with, I originally had a deal with one company. They actually put out the Rick James. Not too long after he died, there was a book came out called Confessions of a Super Freak. It was his autobiography. Later on, David Ritz did a more official one called Glow.
I have that one. Yeah.
I have both of them. They're a little bit different. There's a little bit more in the first one. There's some stuff they feel like, oh, we better take this.
Okay, I need. Okay, so I need to go get that. Is what you're saying then?
I would get it if you're a hardcore
Okay.
Rick James fan. You got most of it in Glow, but there are a few things in Glow that aren't in Confessions, and then there's some things in Confessions that aren't in Glow. But
Okay,
anyway, so
I
that
got you.
company that did that, I got a deal with them in 2013 to do this MC 500. But what happened, they came up with the idea of splitting it into two books, but they kind of sat on it for like a year.
Mhm.
And then after a year, the owner of the company, he basically told me, he said, I think you can do well with these books. But he basically said his people had gotten kind of lazy because they made a nice amount of money doing these little cheap biographies on different artists that they could sell overseas. And
Wow.
so they would have had to put forth more effort to make my book sell from a promotion standpoint. He basically said his people had gotten too lazy to do all that and they weren't enthusiastic about it. So he gave me the rights back. And so then I ended up going with Amazon's company CreateSpace, who I had worked with before.
Right.
And at the time, they had a limit to how many images you could have in your books. I think it might have been like 40 or 50, something like that. So in the original books, I actually ended up combining, black folks, we'll come up with some stuff, you say 40 images, but you ain't say 40 pictures. So I
Nope.
was like combining pictures, like I put two pictures together and scan them as one image.
Ah.
There you go. So I know like one that I did was like with above the rim. I put the tape, the front of the CD and the back of the CD all as one image. You know?
Smart.
So
Smart.
now that company, CreateSpace, got disbanded a few years ago, and so Amazon's company is KDP. So KDP doesn't have a limit. You can have as many photos as you want to. The catch, though, is they don't format books. Like before, you would just send your manuscript, send your photos, let them know where you wanted the photos, and they would put it together. Well, now they like, well, you can change whatever you want to change, but you got to do it yourself because we don't offer that.
Mm.
So it's been a challenge, trying to get everything in order. But the good thing is, I think these books are more appealing visually now than they were before because the original company I had to deal with, their idea was to have an image for every song.
Right.
So this is closer to that. It's not every song, but it's damn near. Whereas before it was limited amount of images. You know.
Yeah, and when you look on back on this, I mean, because I had a chance because Marcus was kind enough to send me a PDF of both books. When we first started talking about doing this interview, and I just kept looking through the pages, reading everything, just scrolling. Like, man, this is intensive. And I mean, it's somebody who enjoys people reading writing books, and I've done some creative writing in my spare time. I've used Amazon before and create space as well. But you know just talk about what that process was like for you, knowing that you had to rely on your memory after what we can consider close to 50 years of learning every song that is in the book, tying stories to it. I mean, I'm still laughing about the Chicago the conductor story about the young lady that blew you a kiss, and you was like, you should have said something, and she was like, you should have said something. That's one of
Right.
that's one of my favorite stories in that book. Just how just what was that process like, from the not just from an intellectual standpoint, but from an emotional standpoint as well, going back through the memories and whatnot.
Well, fortunately, I'm kind of known for having a great memory.
Hmm.
So remembering things is not an issue for me. A lot of times people be like, how you remember all this? I'd be like, man, how could I forget? I don't know what you talk about. This was, so that wasn't really difficult at all. And the thing is, this whole project started as just something I was doing for myself when I was turning 40 in 2013. It was a countdown thing that I did on social media, on Facebook and Instagram. Matter of fact, I got something for you. I'm going to show you something real quick.
All right.
So the whole thing, what I did was I went through my whole collection because originally, you know how VH1 used to do all those top 100 greatest rock and roll songs, 100
Yeah.
albums. I always watched those things. I love countdowns. I hosted different countdowns, year-end countdowns for different stations I worked at. And I always loved those. So, and I love the concept of the All-Star game. My favorite sporting event is the Major League Baseball All-Star game. So, especially ones from the 70s and 80s, I rewatched those things a gazillion times on YouTube because I was a baseball card and football card collector as a kid. So, All-Star game, all of that kind of tied in. So, I wanted to see, well, what would it be like if I came up with 100 songs? And I immediately saw 100 wasn't going to be enough. And then I remember the article I read in Sports Illustrated in the mid 80s where Reggie Jackson, Hall of Fame baseball player, he had just hit his 500th home run. And he was talking about how that guaranteed he was going to go to the Hall of Fame because 500 was a distinct number in baseball. You know, they had a 500 home run club. Now, you know, cats start doing steroids. They kind of, so some of them cats over 500, they don't really get that. But still, 500 sounded like a good number to try, you know. And it could have been 600 or 700, but I felt like 500 would be a good number. So what I did, I went through I had a big record and CD collection at the time. I still have some, but not as many. But I went through and kind of jotted down songs that could possibly be considered for it. And then what I did was I basically conducted a draft, just like the NFL draft, NBA draft. Yeah. I basically went through and I did a draft board. So this is the original MC 500 draft board.
Wait, let me put you up on the screen by yourself so everybody can see that.
Okay. See that? So what I did was, so it's like 4 pages of this. You know, what I did was I came up with, I did 20 groups of 25 songs. Okay. And I would write the songs down. I was drafting them. Like if I could only get 25 songs, which 25 do I want? So I got them 25. Then I got the next group of 25 and it kept going until I got 500 songs. Then I went within each group and put them in order. Okay, if I can only get this one, what's going to be this? You know, so I went backwards. And so that's how we got the numerical order. Now, the numbers of the songs are only meaningful for me. I just wanted to, I put them in the books that way just to preserve the original project.
Yeah.
But it's not like I'm recommending one song or another. But this was the original draft board. And you see like different check marks and all that. And I was going through and figuring them out. So yeah, it was fun doing this too, because I'm really more of a full albums person. Like way back in like maybe 2006, I think it was. I came with a list of 120 albums that, you know, were my personal favorites from 120 down to 1. So I always thought in terms of albums, but there were always songs that I really enjoyed where maybe I didn't like the whole album. Maybe I'd never even heard the whole album, but there were certain songs. So the whole concept of trying to, you know, come up with it was pretty, but here's where it got to be a bigger deal than what I intended. So when I originally did these, I'm friends on Facebook with a lot of musicians, especially from the bands from the 70s, because 70s funk is my main favorite bass. That's my bass for music. Everybody who's heavy into music has a bass genre and they kind of branch off from there. So for me, it's 70s funk is first. Funk always comes first. Then I got off into, Philly soul, even though I was introduced to that first, but the Philly soul from the 70s. Then I got into house here, and then it was hip hop, and then it was jazz, and then it was rock. So I'm friends with a lot of those musicians on Facebook. And what I did when I did the original post, I would tag them if it was their song.
Right.
And a lot of times what happened is the musicians started commenting and giving information about the song,
Wow.
about the sessions.
Wow.
You know,
That's
one
dope.
that really stood out was Ohio player Skin Tight, bass player Marshall Jones. He passed away back, I want to say about 2013, 2014, somewhere in there. He gave me some information about the actual session. I remember him saying that the change, which is the part I like the most, would go. He said Sugarfoot came up with that,
Ooh.
and Jones said he didn't really like it, but at the time they were in a rush, so they didn't have time to be, overthinking it. So he just went ahead and rolled with it, and it turned out that was one of the best parts of the song. So I started getting information from people like him, Jerome Braley from Parliament Funkadelic, Don Silva, Rise of Funkenstein, Parliament Funkadelic, cats from Lakeside and Barcades, the keyboard player from the Barcades, Winston Stewart. Yeah, he gave me, some info about some of the songs that I had. So that started happening. So when I got about, like I said, it was a countdown online at first. So when I got about halfway through, I said, you know what, I want to preserve this in book form. If for no other reason, just so I can have it and I can go back to it sometime whenever I want to, as a documentation of, my first 40 years. Because the idea was telling a story of 40 years through these songs. Okay. But I also knew if it was going to be in book form, it had to appeal to more than just me. Because my favorite song, who cares?
Right.
So what is it that's going to make it interesting for other people? So that's when I started adding in more official information, like who wrote the songs, who produced them, what album, what year, the memorable line from the songs. And then whatever extra information I got, I put that in the writings, because it's really, these are not books that you have to read from top to bottom. It's not a story, like a regular book. It's like every song has its own individual short write up, and you get the information for that song or the story that I have to go along with it, whatever the case may be. So I wanted to make it more appealing to other people so that they could use it. And at the time, I wasn't even streaming music just yet. I was still listening and making compilations on CDs and stuff in 2015, 16. Now we're in the playlist era. So these books are actually more useful now and more valuable now for people than they were when I first put them out. That's another reason why I did the 10th anniversary relaunch, because people can get a lot out of this. I mean, you can take these books with people, vinyl collectors, vinyl has gotten, or vinyls, as the kids say.
Yeah. I never want to correct any of my social media friends about it. I'm just like, as long as they discover them, I don't care.
Yeah, man. I mean, that's what they want to call them, the vinyls. Okay, that's fine. But you can take these books with you while you're vinyl collecting, or you can go through the books and jot down songs that you don't know and be like, hey, maybe I want to check that out. Because that's what happened to me. I mean, there's a book called the Billboard Book of #1 R&B Hits. I call it the Blue Book because it's got a blue cover. And that was the first book I ever saw where it was write-ups for individual songs, and it was R&B black music. I discovered it came out in like 1993. I found it in the campus bookstore when I was in college, and I was in the bookstore, like reading it, like, like, man, I got to put this down and go eat, So that was, I ended up discovering songs that I had never heard, but I knew that from the description, what they're writing, like, this might be something that I might like. Perfect example would be the Temptations' Happy People. And from 1975, from their Song for You out. From the description, what they were saying, it was like this was a change. They got more into funk. Norman Whitfield was no longer the producer. They got them more of a sound that was similar to the Ohio Players and Commodore. I was like, okay, I never heard anybody play that song. Same thing with Shaky Ground, which was followed. These were both #1 hits. So I had never heard them, but I went out on a limb, went to the record store, found the album, listened to it, like, oh yeah, this is right on time.
Right.
So Happy People is actually one of the songs that I wrote about in the 500. And I actually have a picture of the original sticker from the album that had the
Yep, I
song
saw that.
titles. Yeah,
Hmm.
because that, if you just find the record used, you're not good. You're more likely not going to find that. It's not going to be on there.
Yeah,
'Cause I
it's
think it
one of
was
those
on the
things that
Blackbird.
yeah, it's
Yeah,
one of those things that just kind of like just falls to the wayside.
yeah,
That's a rare find, as it were.
yeah. And I happened to find a sealed copy once, and so that's how I ended up getting the sticker. So yeah, that was the thing. I started discovering song "To Each His Own" by Faith, Hope, and Charity, another number one here from 1975. That's been long. So like, to me, older music falls into three categories. You have the classic hits, which we hear all the time. Maze Before I Let Go, Cameo Candy, whatever classic songs you hear all the time. Earth, Wind, and Fire, September. Those are the classic hits. Then you have the forgotten hits, songs that were popular when they were out, but you don't really hear them anymore because, particularly up tempo records, like have working in radio. One thing I know is that urban radio, when you talk about as people get older, they tend to not be as into the up tempo stuff because
Yeah.
they test the songs out. Radio stations don't just play songs just at random. It's not just this was paid for. So it's way more to it than that. It's deeper than that. They test the songs out through phone. They used to do call out research where they would play the hooks and ask people, is this one of your favorite songs? Are you familiar with this song? Are you sick of this song? All of that. And they would do auditorium tests where they would do the same thing, but it'd be a bunch of people in the auditorium. So they would test the songs out. And so as time goes on, a lot of those funk records that were big in the 70s, they don't test as well because as people get older, particularly women, they like to be a little more mellow. So
Right.
the slower stuff or the mid-tempo stuff tends to play more on urban adult radio than the up tempos. So there are a lot of up tempo hits that were bangers in the 70s and 80s that have just been lost to time because you don't hear them. But because of the way people discover music and listen to music now, it's very easy to know about those songs because you're not dependent on somebody else to play them. You can just discover them for yourself.
Right.
So that's one of the things these books do. They can help you discover or rediscover songs that maybe you heard when you were a kid, maybe you never heard them at all, or maybe you forgot about them, and then you can pull them up while you look through the book. And you pull them up on YouTube or Spotify, whatever you use, and you can hear these songs.
Yeah, and not just because one of the prime examples for me was because I was too young to be in the theaters watching Mo Money. But here in the Philly area, DJ Touchtone, I know you probably talk cross paths with him a time or two.
No,
Um, oh, DJ Touchtone,
but I did
he's
see more money at the theater. That was a very memorable,
yeah.
memorable night.
I was too young, but he's recently started playing on Classics 107.9, which is a Radio One station in Philly. He
Mm,
started playing Money Can't Buy Me Love by Ralph Tresvant.
okay.
And I was like, I remember hearing this song as a kid, but I didn't remember just how doggone hard this song was.
Mhm.
So that's just like one of those things for me. So it, I think people like yourself. I'm trying to get to where you are. I mean, you guys didn't hear me and Marcus talking before this, but he's like, I said I don't feel comfortable calling myself a historian on his level. Yeah, he said you can. You just got to start differentiating what your favorite is versus what the best is. Because
Right.
I'm absolutely going to take that advice moving forward. But people like you occupy an important space because you've been on the radio, you've been on Unsung, you've written books, and the way it feels like this whole country is like on a freight train towards anti-intellectualism and doing the research and stuff. Just how important do you feel like your job is as a music historian? I mean, because even though you probably reach out to more of an older crowd, I still think you can we could reach younger crowds as well. Just how important is it that we continue to, as Michael Irvin says, not lose the recipes with regard to putting kids up on this music?
Well, two things. Number one, I wouldn't say music historian is a job. It's just kind of something that you either you are or you aren't. You kind of just and that just comes from interest. So if you I don't know, it's very little info that I have that I know that anybody else couldn't know. It's a matter if they want to know. I was just a person who always I wanted to know more, especially like in the late 80s. I was really I liked the music that was out. I watched Video Soul and Video Vibrations and all that stuff. I was well
Hmm.
aware of all the music that was out and I liked a lot of stuff. But I remember I just know it didn't give me the same feeling as the music I heard when I was a little kid in the late 70s. You know,
Right.
Keith Sweat was cool, but he wasn't like Teddy Pendergrass, or
Hmm.
Rick James, Guy was cool, but they wasn't Parliament. You know what I'm saying? It was a different
Yeah.
thing. So I started going back and finding these records. It started with Parliament Funkadelic. That's my all-time favorite group, and they have more songs than anybody in the books. But it started with them in '86. I started collecting all of their stuff because I had some of the records when they were out. Funkadelic versus the Placebo Syndrome, the album with Flashlight on it. That's
Yeah.
the first album I ever got from a record store in late '77. Flashlight wasn't even the cut yet when I got it.
Mm.
Okay.
Wow.
So, and I was just a little kid and I had records, but in the late '80s, I started going back. Once I was getting the P Funk stuff, I remember Labor Day weekend of '88. I remember being in one of my aunt's houses and they had like this thing in their backyard. Like they had the garage and then there was like a little area in between the garage and the house. I don't know what you call it, but they had some records in there. And I remember picking up Stevie Wonder's original Musicarium 1 and opening it up. And I noticed there were pictures of the albums that the songs, like that's a compilation. So they had
Right.
the original albums from 72 to 8. And I was like, oh, okay, I remember this one. I ain't never seen this one. I'm reading the titles. And so I asked them if I could borrow the record. I did. I went back and I listened and I knew Superstition, I knew You All the Sun, but certain songs. I remember when You Haven't Done Nothing came on.
Ooh, we.
I was listening to that, and when it got to the Jackson 5 part, that dude, I was like, I remember that, yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah, so I started. That really got me. I started collecting records from that era, from the '70s, early '80s, and what happened is a lot of times because it's very important to understand it's the late '80s because that's when people were kind of getting away from buying vinyl records. People were buying cassette tapes, CDs were out, but they hadn't become the prominent thing just yet. But as we
Right.
got further into the '90s, by the time you got to like early '90s, it was about the CDs. So a lot of people were giving up their record collections. Like my relatives, I'd be like, hey, can I borrow this? Oh man, you can have that, man. You got it. So that helped me get started
Right.
collected. My brother-in-law Ralph, I mentioned him in a couple of the song entries. He was a DJ in the '70s, and he used to give me copies of records as a little kid. I had Parliament Live, P Funk, Earth Tour, Earth, Wind and Fire, I Am, Ozzy Brothers, Go for Your Guns, and all that. Well, at the end of the '80s, he had stopped DJing. He gave me his whole record collection.
Wow.
So I had all of this stuff, and I'm cute. And then, as I got into college, I started doing research with charts and everything. So it was just interest. So to go back to your question, how do we get people up on it? They have to want to do it. If they want to do it, they can get the information. It's just a matter of how much information are you actually looking for. Some people don't need all that much. They just want to know the song. They like it. They don't like it. That's it. But if you're looking to dig deeper, which will help you discover more music, then it's not really that difficult to do now. So I know from my end, these books are a good way to contribute to that for people to get them, and they can discover the songs. And it's just, some of the stuff I'm always discovering. One thing that I find funny, I'm going to say something that's really crazy. But in the world we live in right now, it's not impossible. Okay. It's kind of crazy, but the world we live in today, it's not impossible. Let's say if the current sitting president put out an executive order that nobody could make any more music. Mm-hmm. Imagine that.
It's possible. It's absolutely possible.
Right. There'll be no more new music. The new music is trash. Now we will only stick to the classics. It's no good. It's no good. You know, what would people do? A lot of people would lose their minds if that was to happen. Oh, God. Me personally, well, I'm just gonna go back to, you know, checking out these Yusef Lateef albums I listened to on YouTube, or, you know, this Gene Harris, or, you know, last year alone, because I'm a big YouTube and YouTube music guy. Right. Last year alone, I probably listened to a good 100-something jazz albums from the 70s alone, just pulling them up. Because back in the day, you had to actually get the records, right, or the CDs or whatever. You had to, first of all, you had to find them. Then you had to spend your money to buy them. Well, now you can just pull the stuff up and listen to them. So I listen to the albums all the time from artists who, some of them I never heard of, but most of them I've heard of before, but I may not know that much of their music. And I'll go through somebody's whole catalog, or at least the years that I feel would be most appealing to me. So I may start, you know, say like you did a video on Gene Harris, Los Alamitos Latin Funk Love Song. I finally got to the point the whole time.
Man, it took me a couple takes to get that title right.
Yeah, I'm sure. I just discovered that last year. I had never seen the record, but I had another Gene Harris album in a special way with theme for Rihanna, and that's a killer album. He worked with some of the cast from Earth, Wind and Fire, Larry Dunn, Philip Bailey, and them. So I went back, like, let me check out this Gene Harris stuff, you know. So I went through album by album and just listened. You know, certain stuff wasn't really for me. Certain stuff I'm like, oh yeah, I like that, and I added them to my playlist because a lot of people talk about a playlist or your playlist. I don't have one playlist. I got a bunch of playlists. Mm-hmm. You know, I have 4 really big ones. I have a 70s funk, 70s, early 80s funk. I got 70s jazz and jazz funk. I got 70s, 80s pop rock. And then I got 70s, early 80s disco and dance music. So when I go through these people's catalogs, if I hear something I like, I'll drop it in whichever playlist makes sense. So like if I'm checking out the jazz albums, like I was listening to, like I said, Yusef Lateef, some songs I heard, you know, Wilton Irvine or Eddie Holman, Eddie Henderson. You know, just cats who I may have seen these records over the years, you know, but I didn't know them and I didn't feel comfortable enough buying them. Maybe they got pushed out because I needed something else or wanted something else. So now we have we can listen to all of this stuff, and you can easily, for me, new music is any music I ain't never heard before. I don't care what year it was recorded. You know, if I never heard it, it's new music for me. Right. So a lot of people don't have that mentality though. I remember years ago in the 90s, I was working at a record store because I worked at 3 record stores in the 90s. And the last one was called Dr. Wax Records here in Chicago in Hyde Park. And people used to come in and be like, man, what's new? What's new? And we'd be like, and some weeks it was a little slow, like, it ain't really nothing big, you know, new, but, you know, maybe check this out. Check out this Earth, Wind and Fire. That's the way of the world. Like people get basic stuff. Oh man, that's old. I don't want to. Okay, if you ain't never heard it before, what difference does it make?
Yeah, how is it old?
Right, but that's not how a lot of people feel. So I'll discover stuff all the time, man. So if people want the information, they want to know the music. We living in a time where it's very easy to find it out. As a matter of fact, it's almost too easy because there's so much you can discover. A lot of time people get lost and they're like, man, where do I start? So that's where the books come in and they can help you get some kind of foothold, finding out stuff and, seeing what you like or what you don't like. And maybe you can go down and keep discovering. And in the back of volume 2, the black one, it's actually more than 500 songs because there's a bonus song in each book. And then in the back of volume 2, there's actually a list of songs that didn't make the MC 500 that were considered. And I got another shorter list of songs that, had I known about them at the time, they would have had a really good shot of being official entries in the 500. But, like I said, I hadn't discovered them yet, or maybe they hadn't came out yet,
Right.
because it's not just all older stuff, I still hear songs every now and then that I like that are actually have been, recently recorded. But so it's easy to find out the stuff now. So that's why these are officially music guides to guide you. I'm here to guide you. I'm here to take you by the hand, like Al Green said. Take me by the hand. That's what I'm doing. So you just take these and you go and you discover stuff.
Yeah, and I mean it's so interesting because listening to how you discovered, music that was new to you. For me, I came along in the legendary file sharing era because because when I went away to college for the first time, my mom was like, "You need a computer," and my mom had never bought that up before in life. But that's how I mean. I always knew my mother wanted the best for me. That's why this show kind of exists, because she's the one that put the music love into my head anyway. But
Right.
she was like, you need a computer if you're going to be in college, and I'm like, okay, I'll take it. So when I got on campus, this was back when we were still doing a dial-up. We didn't Delaware State was actually late to the whole Wi-Fi thing. So one of my first roommates was a cool cat I'm still cool with today, and me and him used to have a system because his girlfriend lived long distance in Connecticut at the time, and he was like, "All right, if you give me an hour on the phone with my baby, you can have the rest. You can have a line to download as many songs as you want." Cool. So what I would do was, I just walk around campus, let him cake, come back, and then I would just go crazy. That was how I really because around the same time I started file sharing like crazy was when John Jackson put out A House on Fire, The Rise and Fall of Philadelphia Soul. If you haven't had, I mean, I'm sure you've heard that. Yeah, I love that book. I still read that book at least once or twice every other month. So
I love that book. I hate to say it's only one thing I can't stand about that book.
Which
You
one is
got
that?
all them damn footnotes, man. It's like you can't. It's like you read and then it's like a number, and then you got to go in the back and see what the extra piece is.
Right. And that book actually helped me because I got the chance to interview Carla Benson, who is the surviving member. I saw the surviving member of the Sweethearts of Sigma, and she just put out a book. You've read it. I've read it. It is wonderful. So I mean, it's just so interesting that even though we are not that far apart in age, the way we discovered older music or newer music to us is kind of like different. And that's why I asked that question. I'm glad you were able to say that because a lot of people just don't have the thirst for knowledge anymore. And I think that, something that is honestly terrifying, to be quite honest with
you. Yeah, I see a lot of people if there's one place you can go to really kind of gauge how younger people are feeling, like people in their 20s and 30s, go on Threads. On the app Threads. It's connected to Instagram. You see it looks like a little @ sign or something. If you go on Threads, because it's basically kind of like how Twitter was, but it's mostly younger people on there. And one of the things I see on there a lot is people, asking about playlists, or be like, or this thing, name some albums from the 90s that's no skips. They real big on no skips, 90s R&B. And I remember one cat posted something like that. And I said, well, here's what I suggest you do. Instead of just getting all this info from other people, which are just going to be their personal opinions in most cases, go online and just discover for yourself. Just explore. Go on and listen to these albums and see which ones you think are no skips or which ones you really like. Or even if they're not no skips, you may hear something that's great because most artists didn't make great albums. I don't care what era you're talking about. Most artists didn't make great albums. A lot of artists made good albums. It may be an album that could be a classic, but it's a couple songs that's a little iffy, you know.
Yeah.
But you can discover a lot of music. Like I said, you don't have to wait for other people to tell you. It's fine to get suggestions, but you have to take them with a grain of salt and understand that people, because I see people suggesting stuff and I'd be like, man, you tripping. Like, I had to get to a point where I'm like, you know what, I'm not even gonna comment on these no more because people will be saying, they'll be suggesting records. I'm like, I know there's nowhere in the world you trying to convince. If you're gonna put somebody up on some music, give them the best of what that artist has, the biggest thing they had, and then let them keep digging deeper. Don't try to
Right.
start nobody off with something that's more obscure or, oh, this the one I like. Yeah, that's cool, but you run the risk, especially in this time where people don't have big attention spans. If you've never heard Marvin Gaye, and somebody said, and you say, well, what's a Marvin Gaye record I should check out? And somebody tells you In Our Lifetime, and you listen to that, you go, Marvin Gaye wasn't all that. He was all right, and you may not, that person may never try to listen to any other Marvin Gaye record because they heard him and they thinking that's what he did, when in reality, that was an album that got put out that he wasn't even finished making, and Motown put it out, and that's why he left the label. He said that they embarrassed him with that record. So if you're gonna say, now if it's your personal favorite, okay, no problem, but you can't do that with younger people because that may be the only time they ever listen to that artist. And if you suggesting the wrong thing, they may never go back to them and hear the stuff that really made that artist or that band what they really became.
Yeah, like for me, like you mentioned Parliament Funkadelic, like I don't know if I would, you know, suggest America Eats is Young to somebody, but
No.
but if we're talking, One Nation Under a Groove, or even some of the later even some of the later Westbound stuff, because I mean, let's take it to the stage. That's a one that I enjoy. I mean, but again, you're really trying to get people to understand the greatness of Funkadelic, and I don't know if that one fits either, but just trying to you know, get people to I mean, that's one thing that I try to do with this channel, even though people complain that I talk too much. I'm like, yo, I can't play music. There's the thing called
Oh, right.
copyright strikes. I'm like, golly, I'll never forget one dude literally cussed me out on one video. I'm like, okay. But yeah, I mean, it's like, what do you want me to do? But I mean, that's kind of what I want to do with this channel. Is just let people know that we like this is Black Music Month. I mean, we have a strong tradition of music. I mean, you don't have a lot of the music that these people enjoy today without our folks. I mean, you go back to even Sister Rosetta Tharpe, Robert Johnson, all the blues folks from way back when, and just trying to get people to understand that the music of today is cool. And I mean, and I don't judge the kids for what they like today, because at one point in time, I was the biggest DMX fan in the world, and DMX was crazy as 10 people, as my grandmother used to say. So I mean, if a kid today likes um if he likes Young Thug, if he likes Gunna, if he likes Kodak Black, whatever Kodak Black is calling himself this Thursday or whatever, I mean, I can't judge them for that, because I was the same dude who listened to DMX religiously. So I mean, music tastes change, but I mean, our history is just so rich. I just don't want that to be lost to time, and I know you probably feel the same way.
I don't think it will be, because what happens is people get older, they start to mellow out, and they start to. I see a lot of young people who actually do go back. You'll always have some young people who are gonna be like I was, or like how you will go back, and it's not the majority, but there'll always be people who do, and as time goes on, more of them will try to discover. The one thing I don't like is when people act like music started in the 90s. you know, I remember in 2015, I was in Dallas. I was working for Radio One, and Radio One, TV One Unsung company,
Yeah.
and I had been in some unsungs at that point, but not a lot of them yet. And there was a lady who worked for TV One who we had a meeting and she was talking about different stuff. And she mentioned that with Unsung, it one of the things that kind of helped made Unsung successful is that TV One was never able to get a real they never really knew up front which episodes were going to do well and which ones weren't. It was hit or miss depending on the artist. And there was no formula they could follow and say, okay, we get this kind of artist, this gonna work. This kind. Now they had seen some trends. I remember being told that episodes about singers typically did better than episodes about bands or groups. Um, Episodes about artists from the 90s did really well. I remember her saying that, the Escape episode was like a huge blockbuster for them. And I remember saying, well, you got to take that with a bit of a grain of salt because you got two members in Candy and Tiny who have stayed active through reality TV.
Yeah.
So they're not really thought of necessarily as, oh, we got to go back and remember them. They were current. They still are. So the fact that those ratings did well. Matter of fact, I'll give you an even better example. Because the lady was saying, the 90s was the sweet spot. And I said, yeah, well, music didn't start in the 90s, because somebody brought up Johnny Guitar Watson and she was like, everybody kind of laughed. I was like, well, you got to understand that may do better than some of the ones you're thinking of, But a good example, the very first one that people saw me in was Lakeside. I did Johnny Taylor and Lakeside the same day. I actually recorded for Johnny Taylor first, but the Lakeside one aired first. And I remember when TV One was promoting it, it was the beginning of a new season, and it was going to be 2 episodes. It was Shantae Moore and another episode. And they never said who the other episode was till like maybe the day of or the day before, So it was understandable they emphasized Shantae Moore because she was on R&B Divas at the time.
Right.
Again, she was currently on TV, so they knew that was going to try to go. That's fine, but they ain't even tell people it was Lakeside until either the day of or the day before. So I always felt like Lakeside kind of got the short end of the stick from a promotional standpoint because their episode didn't get pushed the same way a lot of the other ones did. And that was an example because they knew the Shantae Moore was going to do well and the bands maybe hadn't done as well as some of the other ones, so they didn't emphasize that, but they were never able to get a real bead on which episodes would work and which ones wouldn't.
Yeah, and I mean that's interesting because in this space, that's something that I kind of wrestle with now because it's so funny. For the longest time, the top video on my channel was the Super Bowl Shuffle. and I did that sort of as a joke because I mean I live in an area where the Eagles are the thing and of course they lost to the Bears. So what could I do? But
wait a minute, you say they lost to the Bears when? Just last year
in the playoffs?
What year are you talking?
2025. This past year.
No, they didn't play the Eagles in the playoffs.
Okay, who did the Eagles?
They played them in the regular season. They played them on Black Friday and spanked them.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah. Okay, I know it was sometime that the Eagles, because this is now that AJ Brown's gone, hopefully Eagles fans can rest. But yeah, I was like,
that was the best game the Bears played last year.
Yeah,
that was the game that let people know, okay, these cats are serious when they beat the Eagles.
Yeah, and I thought, well, it's been 40 years since they've been there, and I'm like, they got a good chance this year. So I was like, well, let me do a quick little video about the Super Bowl Shuffle. That for the longest time, that was the best performing video on my channel until people caught up to my Whispers week. And it's just, I mean, it's like you said, it's hit or miss. And that's kind of like what I wanted to close this out with, is just to get your thoughts on where you think this whole media thing is going as it's so crazy to think that we're so close to the 2030s. We never thought we'd be talking about the 2000s, the 2010s, the 2020s. The 2020s are, we're on the second half of that now. We're getting close to 2030. I mean, you've been on the radio. You were on the radio for a long time. You've been on TV. Just what do you think is the future of the medium for, like radio and television, and even down to writing, for from not just from a music journalism standpoint, but just from a journalism standpoint as a whole, especially for black folk. What do you think is next, if there is a next, in this industry, in this business?
Honestly, man, I ain't gonna lie. I don't know, man. I don't really concern myself with stuff like that, because whatever it is, it's gonna be driven by younger people.
Okay.
You know,
Right.
things that are happening, younger people may not always don't necessarily have the money to do things as older folks, but anything culture related is always driven by young people. I don't care when you're talking about. Most of the greatest music ever made was made by people when they were in their 20s, whether it's 70s, 80s, 90s, I don't care what era you're talking about. Most of it was made by people when they're 20, because it's something about when you're out of high school and young, you're trying to figure it out. And once you get a path and you just got that energy and that determination and you want to make it, that drive, That's why a lot of times music from older artists doesn't work as well, because it doesn't have that sense of urgency that I gotta make it. It has more of a reflective sense, and that's why a lot of times it doesn't connect as strongly, it doesn't last as long, regardless of what genre you're talking. Younger people now, it can be argued maybe that's a little different now because of how music is made. Maybe it's not as big of a deal to them, or the fact that it's not, the music industry is not how it was. You don't have labels with plans and artist development and all that's gone.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I can't really say where it's gonna go. All I can say is I just appreciate the fact that I've been alive, to live through some of the greatest stuff that's been made, and had the opportunities to make, contributions and be a part of it and everything. That's all I can say. I'm a historian. I ain't a predictor.
Fair enough.
I wish
Fair
I
enough.
was. I wish I could, but I can't, man. I just roll with it, and I think I got off the current train in terms of, I keep up with stuff to a certain degree. I listen to like Angela Yee. She's my favorite radio personality. I listen to her, but I listen to her on YouTube the day after a show. And
Right.
so I hear certain names of certain artists and all of that, but it's hard to say, man, especially with technology like it is, and companies, getting rid of jobs, and it's
Yeah.
hard to say, man, what's gonna happen. you know Hey, all
Yeah.
I know is I'm just trying to make my way.
Yeah, we just along for the ride here. We are on the groove line, as a matter of fact.
Yeah.
But ladies and gentlemen, Marcus Chapman, MC Marcus Chapman, thank you so much for taking the time. Tell the good people where they can find you on social media, and how they can get their hands on the coolest book ever, music book ever, aka the MC 500.
All right. So when it comes to social media, I'm mainly on Facebook. I have Instagram. I have Twitter or X. I have a Threads, because you got Instagram, you got Threads, whether you know
Yeah.
it or not. I have a TikTok. I don't use those as much, but I'm really active more so on Facebook, just because you can do more stuff on Facebook,
Right.
and I'm connected to more people on there. But I do have the other ones at MC Marcus Chapman. Everything. MCMARC. You see it on the screen. Just put the initials in the front, and that's my name. Now, in terms of the books, these two books right here, they are on Amazon. And what's funny is, like I said, I did these through Amazon's publishers. People order more of Amazon now than they did when these came out. So it's kind of right on time. You can go on Amazon, type my name on there. You can type MC 500, coolest music, whatever. But it's the coolest music book ever made, aka the MC 500 Volume 1, Volume 2. They have new 10th anniversary updates with more photos, more information, and they are available in paperback, as you see right here. They're in digital form. They're also available in hardcover. They didn't have hardcover books. They didn't do those back when I first did these, but they do now. And to me, I really like that because that makes it feel more official to me.
Right.
Something like that hardcover book, they get official. My copies haven't come in the mail just yet, but yeah, they on there, so you can get them as a companion piece. The 500 songs is both books together. It's not 500. It's 250 plus bonus. So it's like 250, and then you got the extra songs in the back, and then we'll just open it up a little bit just so people can see some stuff.
All right, let me go ahead and put Marcus on the screen real quick so y'all can check that out.
Let's see. There's a Tupac All Eyes on Me with the rare promotional stamp on it because I was working in radio when that came out. I just started the station. So they used to send a whole bunch of CDs, like 20, 30 copies. They stopped doing all that though. So yeah. So you get to write up each write. This is Parliament I was talking about. This is the first album I ever got from a record store. These are pieces of the comic book that came with the record.
Wow.
So it came with a poster and a comic book. So that's actually a picture of me with a Van Halen reunion t-shirt on and a ticket stub from 2002 for my Rockheads, Sammy Hagar, David Lee Roth. So it's a bunch of stuff. It's, pictures with artists and here's one, Public Enemy. Where'd they go? The first Public Enemy album signed by Chuck D. I met him a couple of times. So yes, it's all types of stuff in there. And this Brick from 1977 classic funk album signed by 3 of the original members. Me with the original bass player Ray Ransom. That was from 2011. So yeah, it's all types of stuff like that. Oh, here's one, Up in Smoke. This is the ticket to the Up in Smoke tour. Dr. Dre, Snoop Dogg. I actually did a live broadcast from this show in Indianapolis. I was working at WTLC at the time. This was my pass, my working pass, and this is the flyer to the after party I hosted. And I'm gonna tell you something. I always wondered if them guys smoked as much weed as they claimed. When that after party was over, I never asked that question again, bro. They smoked so much. They set the smoke alarm off in that month. I'm telling you, bro, it was wild. But yeah, so it's a lot of stuff like that, So again, these and it's just so you know, it's 200. There's over 250 different artists represented in these books, from every genre: funk, R&B, hard rock, soft rock, jazz, disco, house, hip hop. All of that is in there. So in the short write-ups, you can, it's info you can use to add to your playlist. If you already know the songs, there may be some info that you didn't know about them that's in here. In some cases, provided by the artists themselves. So you can get them paperback, digital, and hardcover. Paperback and hardcover have the new updates with more photos and all of that extra goodies, promo items, and all of that I couldn't put in the original versions. The digital versions, unfortunately, do not have the updates because they don't do that anymore, and I ain't got time to be doing it. I'm sorry. Trying to match up, because see, the thing that's cool about the digital, I can show you on my phone real quick. The digital version, I'm gonna go to my Kindle here. And so this is the MC 500 Volume 2. So the cool thing is I can go, there's an index in the back of each book, an artist index. So with the digital version, you can actually click to go to the song. It'll take you right there. So let's see. So this is Rick Ross and John Legend Magnificent. Let me go to that. Boom. See, it just jumped right there. And you get the write-up right there. Or if you go to the very beginning, it has the table of contents. It lists the songs in order. So any one of these I click, it'll take you right there. So let's go to Nori Nothing. Boom, click it. Wait, first when you click it, it'll get bigger. Then you click it, boom. Now it takes you right there. So if you get the digital version, you get that. But you just don't get all the extra pictures, because I would have to make it where it does all that. And I'm sorry, I don't have time. I'm technically inclined. I ain't that technically inclined to do all that.
Right.
So these are the official books of Black Music Month. Right here, official books of Black Music Month. All And it's my birthday, June 5th. So, it'll be a nice birthday present, not just for me, but for you as well. All right.
Yes, let's run these up for Marcus's birthday. And I definitely want to thank you once again for taking the time out. It's so funny because when we were planning on doing this, we were going to do it, an hour before we decided to record. But he's like, "Oh man, it's my birthday. I gotta get my hair cut." And one thing I know about us brothers, man, we gotta be sharp for the best day we know.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Because I'm like, I can't be on camera looking raggedy because these videos last. If you go, people watch this a year, 5 years, 10 years from now, I want to be looking right on there. I mean, like, man, this dude, he look a mess. So yeah. Oh, and real quick, so we mentioned this earlier. I do want to mention this again. If you're in the Chicago area, I'm actually doing a signing and discussion event on June 20th at DuSable Museum. It's going to be, the moderator is going to be my man Mike Love from V103 radio station. We used to work together at WGCI back in the day. And it'll be the 30th anniversary of my first time being on Chicago radio as a host.
Oh, wow.
June 17th, 1996. It was the night the Bulls won their 4th title when they beat the Seattle Supersonics the year they won 72 games.
Yeah.
It was a Sunday, June 16th, and I ended up being on the air overnight. I was on from 1 to 5:30. That was my audition to become a host at the station. I was already working at the station doing other things, helping out in the studio, but that was my first time being on by myself as the host. So it's 30 years since that, and 10 years since these books coming. So we're going to have a whole celebration at the DuSable Museum Saturday, June 20th, 2:30 to 4:30. You can order the books now on Amazon and just bring them. They will have a limited supply of books there at the bookstore you can buy, but if you want to just get them in advance and just bring them and I'll sign them, that's cool too. And then the following week, I'm going to be in the south suburbs in Homewood at a bookstore out there, and you can actually buy the books at that one. We'll have a few more at that particular one. So yeah, I'm doing, and then I may end up doing another appearance somewhere else that I'm working on too. But I have at least 2 in Black Music Month, June 20th and June 27th, both on Saturday afternoon. So come on. Hang out.
Y'all ain't gonna be working. Y'all ain't gonna be doing nothing. Go see MC Marcus Chapman, man. You'll be glad you did. And ladies and gentlemen, that is going to do it for day number 5 of the Black Music Month 30 series here on the Groove Line. We greatly thank you for tuning in. We thank Marcus Chapman for joining us. All the contact information for Marcus will be in the description below. Don't forget to subscribe and tap that notification bell so you get notified of all the new videos that drop on this channel. And don't forget to like and comment on these videos. And we talked about a lot in this video, so I better see a lot of comments. So thank you guys for watching and listening. And until the next time we talk, which will be Saturday, of course, y'all have a great weekend, and may you find a groove. Or maybe the groove find
you.
There we go. He see, I told you he's the most famous guy we got watching this show. All right, y'all take it easy.